Punta Cana.
I'm in Punta Canada. I am, but I'm watching the campaign closely. And
I'm sure you are.
State,
I'm sure you are.
I have not had any cerveza yet.
Not yet. Okay. Yeah, 29 degrees in Punta Cana, Dominican Republic right now. Very nice. Very nice, Walter. Okay. It's only 21 degrees warmer than it is in Ottawa right now on the 3rd of October.
If you could see, Rob, the smallest violin is playing on my fingers.
I'm sure
right
it
now
is.
For you.
All right. Maria. Let me begin with you then, Maria. 3 weeks left, 3 weeks to go. What I want to get at is what impact do you think vote splitting could have on this race for mayor? If you have Mark Sutcliffe, Bob Shirelli, Mike McGuire, I mean, there are other candidates as well. Parim Singh, Noor Kadri, they're going to draw their own share of the vote. And I would say all of them are portraying them as being more fiscally centrist than, say, Councillor McKenney. Then aren't they all going to split the vote and deliver victory to McKenney?
Well, certainly there will be vote splitting for people looking for fiscal responsibility and fiscal prudence. And you look at Mike McGuire when he ran last time for mayor, I think he came close to 20% in the polls, which is very good. Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, I think voters are going to look at the whole package. So yes, this is important. It may split some votes, which is why it's so important for people to get their vote out on election day. This to me would be a lesson in, if we think it's going to come down to that maybe 18,000, 20,000 votes that could cause lack of victory for someone who wanted it, then get your vote out on election day.
Get out the vote. Get out the vote. GOTV, get out the vote. Okay, all right. Walter, what do you think on vote splitting and how it could impact the mayor's race?
It's a possibility. The McKenney campaign, their campaign, I don't like a lot of things in terms, and I think the other candidates really haven't called out their inconsistencies, and I think it's a quantum leap campaign. It's a different reality that doesn't actually relate to our reality. But they've run a great campaign. They've got good visual presence, even in the suburbs, in that space. And what I'm noticing from the Sutcliffe and the Shirelli campaigns is they're still releasing new policy. I find that interesting. When you're kind of 3 weeks away, 21 days, you need to be starting to think about the close. Now, it's tough. We've got this kind of Labor Day to 10-week, 9-week campaign that you have. So I think that's an issue. But I think they should be calling out where I think the vote splitting is an issue, is that none of these candidates have really engaged and called out these I think, fanciful promises that we're going to do all these bike lanes in 4 years. We're going to solve chronic homelessness in 4 years. Even if you had all the money on the planet, we don't have enough people, machinery, time, hours in a day to do these things. Speak to people in the construction industry right now. Homes are delayed, even with the drop in prices. We just don't have the physical capacity to do this as a city. And the campaigns that are on the right have not effectively called this out and called it for what it is, lunacy. And that's where the vote splitting can hurt them, as the McKenney campaign just continues to roll in promising a chicken in every pot.
Wow. Okay. What do you think, Maria, about what you're hearing from Walter?
Well, Walter's correct that it's up to the candidates to start challenging each other on some of the policy that they're offering. And I agree with him with respect to building. I've talked to so many people about building new houses or what's happening with their own businesses, and it's the same thing. It's not just getting supplies and whatnot. It's also finding people in the trades to start doing the building. So I think that it's a question of, are all of these priorities really a priority? How do you rank them? And again, I go back to my statements last time about the bike lanes. Yeah. It's certainly a great opportunity to increase cycling capacity in the city, but I find it hard to believe that you could do 25 years of bike lane building in 4 years. From my time on council, I saw it. They'll tell you, if you get something approved in budget year X, staff are now saying don't expect the shovel in the ground to even go in until possibly budget year 1 plus X.
And Rob, just on Maria's point, if you can promise these things in like this number of stuff in 4 years, well, then please send me the winning Lotto Max numbers for tomorrow night, because you are truly a miracle worker. You can foresee the future. Again, it does not make sense. It is not product management. Project management. Okay. Now, Maria, Walter also said, I don't know why 3 weeks out people are still releasing
policy proposals. What do you think about that? Is it a little late in the game for that?
Well, I go back to my other point about it's time to talk about getting out the vote. Because at the end of the day...
people are voting already, right? In early polls. And,
they've already voted in advanced polls.
Yeah.
But also, Election Day, a lot of things can happen. We talk about this all the time. Is it going to rain? Is it going to snow? What's your plan to get out the vote? I think it's good that there's policy being released, not necessarily so close to the election, but I like the fact that these candidates have released a lot of details. I mean, I remember when Mark released his environmental platform, it was significantly detailed.
Yeah.
And that was very early in the campaign. But I have to ask myself, how many people are going to base their vote on reading through reams and reams of paper, internet, on all these policy decisions? I think a lot of people are starting to make up their mind now.
Yeah. I mean, today we have two things out today. Bob Shirelli with a housing plan out today, 3 weeks before the election. And Sutcliffe out with his plan for urban renewal, urban revitalization is what he calls it. So,
and I don't think just on that, Rob. And I
mean, they're important issues, but you're questioning the timing of their release, Walter, is what you're saying.
Well, they're important issues, but people have already voted, and we're not getting to the ballot question. I understand that it's about all these issues, but it's an affordable city. Does transit work? Are my property taxes going up by 2%, 4%, 5%, 8% a year? Are we solving homelessness in a proper and an affordable way and a meaningful way? Are we dealing with the overdose crisis? Where are we on policing and public safety? But you've got to crystallize things into 2 or 3 messages in a municipal campaign, and then get a sense of how is that working your mayoral campaign, working with issues that are being discussed in the wards that are driving some of these ward campaigns.
Okay, that's interesting. I want to talk a little bit more about the transportation/transit plan from Councillor McKenney, but just on my theme here of vote splitting, how much can that favor an incumbent in a ward race? For example, if I've been there a long time on maybe not the most popular city councillor, I don't think it's any. I want as many people running against me as I possibly can. I think about Canada South, Alan Hubli. He has to wear the public transit stuff to a certain extent because he was chair of the Transit Commission. And he's facing a tough competitor in Aaron Coffin, I'm told. But there are also 3 other challengers in the race, which makes me think they're all going to split the anybody but Hubli vote. What do you think, Maria?
Sure, for sure that's going to happen. If you look at Alan Hubli's votes last election, he didn't even get 50% of the vote. So had there not been so much vote splitting, he wouldn't have won. And I think that, begs the question, why is it that, I think he got 45% of the vote, something like that. Why is it that he didn't get returned to office with more than that? Here's someone who promised to run for 2 terms, and if he wins again this time, it's 16 years of him. So I think that stuff comes up, and yes, it might split the vote, but maybe it's time for a change. You look at 2010, big change election, long-term councillors like Brooks and Belmar, they lost their seats, newcomers. Yep. So absolutely vote splitting definitely is a problem.
And I remember in my advising candidates that beat those 2 people, the councillors that you mentioned, they ran on the same message. What are you going to do in the next 4 years that you haven't done in the last 16 or 25?
Right,
so you can raise that now.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah.
And I'll add on to the one thing, Rob, because you mentioned it about Alan Hubli as the chair of the Transit Commission. Absolutely. He's going to wear some of the issues. And I think that's where when he's door knocking, if people ask questions, they can ask him, what about this? What about that? It's about accountability. But also, I remember when he was the chair of the audit committee, these baseball cards, and they were supposed to add up and here are the savings and whatnot. Did you do that? So I think it's not just asking questions about what they've done in that term. It's exactly what Walter said. Like, you've been here for 12 years. What are you going to do for the next 4? And if there's a big project going on or something that they're shepherding through and the voters feel confident, then they'll get the nod and they'll come back to City Hall. But vote splitting will certainly make a difference. Look at Sean Little. 27% of the vote won election.
In Bay Ward, yeah. Okay, Maria, we'll be right back. We've lost Walter. We'll, I don't know, maybe he's gone to the bar. We'll be right back. This is, Walter is calling us this week from Punta Cana in the Dominican. This is the Rob Snow Show. I'm right here in Ottawa, and this is City News.
Play 4 games of bingo from the comfort of your own home each Monday at 7 p.m. for your chance to win money from our $2,000 regular bingo or $5,000 super bingo night. Kiwanis TV Bingo, Mondays at 7 p.m. on Rogers TV.
What are we doing about COVID? Seems like the communications have been all about how everything's opening up, and yet here in Ottawa we're experiencing our 7th wave, so a bit of a contradiction there.
Sometimes it's hard to say goodbye to an old friend. But when you're saying farewell to your vehicle, Kidney Car makes it fast and easy. Just call or visit our website. We'll take any vehicle in any condition and give you a tax receipt for a minimum of $300. No headaches and no towing charges. It's the one-stop solution for getting rid of your unwanted vehicle in just a few short minutes. When your vehicles reach the end of the road, call us toll-free or visit kidneycar.ca.
Send them home. Get rid of them. Gentlemen, please. And so, this organ, which I regret I cannot name because of the presence of these members of the weaker sex, who, although they are married, could not possibly endure.
Get them out.
Patience, Ginny. Patience.
Get them out!
Dr. McFarlane!
Mrs. Trout.
There's no place for women in a medical school.
Get them out!
If you do not bring this classroom under control, I am going to repeat every word of this disgusting lecture to your charming wife.
My friend Jenny Trout was not the only woman to face this kind of thing in medical school. But she would become the first woman licensed to practice medicine in Canada.
I'm Sahai from The Wiggles, and this is my new book, Something in Common. Join me on an adventure as a camp counselor helping some amazing children make friends and share what family means to them. I wrote this book with my friends at Children's Aid Foundation of Canada to help children who might feel lonely or like they don't belong. Not everyone has the same type of family, but we all have something in common. Download Something in Common for free.
Hello, I'm Jim Deeks, host of Canada Files. I hope you'll join me each week for interesting and informative discussions with some of Canada's most impressive people.
Every year, dozens of Canadians are killed or seriously injured because they take risks around railway tracks. Talk to your loved ones about rail safety. Visit stoptracktragedies.ca.
Fair.
Fun.
The Rob Snow Show returns.
On Rogers TV and City News, 101.1 FM.
And 1310 AM.
Municipal Monday with Walter Robinson and Maria McRae. Councillor McKenney is promising fully costed platform sometime this Thursday, I believe, is the latest that we heard. Councillor McKenney will also be with my colleague Sam LaPrade this afternoon. Their plan for transit and transportation is to get you out of traffic, quote, get you out of traffic. But how realistic is it in your opinion? For example, should OC Transpo's budget be increased by 20% over the next 4 years? Should transit fares be frozen for anyone? Should the city borrow $250 million for a bicycle network? Councillor McKenney seems convinced if you build it, they will come. But what do you think, Maria McRae?
Well, first of all, there are things that are nice to have during budget years that maybe you build in the future. So that $250 million, it still remains a hot button issue. There's a lot of people I've spoken to who don't like it because it's a huge amount of money. And the question is, well, if you're spending $250 million there, could it be better spent someplace else? So that's the first thing is it's probably unrealistic to build that much, again, like I said before, in 4 years. And the notion of increasing OC Transpo's budget right now without a full deep dive review correlating ridership And looking at the future of ridership, I don't think is a direction I would go in.
Okay.
And certainly if I was on council, I wouldn't vote for it unless I had the numbers in front of me, because there's two reasons for that. Number one, we know that there are less people coming to the downtown core from the suburbs who used to work for government, and that is not going to change drastically in the future. And number two, a lot of people are still either working full-time from home, or they have a hybrid position where they work most of the time from home and maybe sometimes go to the office. So I'd like to see what are the numbers that would drive such a huge increase. And it's always tough when you reduce transit in any community. We've all been through it as councillors where a bus route is underperforming and you have to change that. And that's a reality of what busing looks like. And it's step up to the plate. Yes, it's tough decision making and people are going to be upset about it, but it needs to be done. So I would not support that without seeing a really deep, detailed dive into the finances of OC Transpo.
Okay. Walter, what do you think about this transportation plan from the front runner here?
You started your question, the premise seems to be if we build it, they will come. Well, we know we can't build it. It's years behind in building in phase 2 already.
Right.
So that's part of it, and I will agree with what everything Maria said in the context of route management, misalignment. But I also saw some stuff the McKenney campaign had. I think the news coverage was, if we get you out of your car and if we get you into transit, there's more room on the road for cars. Well, that's not a zero-sum game, because you may be getting some people into transit that don't have vehicles now. And let's come back to some of that suburban route distribution stuff that Maria talks about. We have a transit system built on buses that are not full. I have not seen a full transit bus anywhere in this city in the last year and a half. We've got huge for it. So you need to have smaller buses that do flexible routes. This is what major cities across the world are doing, taking a look at their suburban routes. So you can, for the example I talked about last week, that you can maybe actually get on a bus and take your son or your daughter to hockey, and then also get your other child to soccer or some performing arts program, and go get groceries and get back if you had that flexibility. But the way our city is designed, on top of the federal government getting people back to the downtown core, which is a real issue and a real long-term economic problem for our city, and investing in how we transfer some of those buildings to housing, which is not simple. We'll just turn them into condos. It doesn't work that way. So those are some of the bigger issues that we need to think about. And again, they're not being solved in 4 years. And to come back to my first point, we don't have enough construction workers. There's a million skilled job positions in Canada that are not being filled. Many of those are in the trades. It's fantasy land. And shame on other candidates for not calling the McKenney campaign out. And good for the McKenney campaign on continuing to drive this message that we'll just say hocus pocus and all the problems will be solved.
Okay, all right. I'm curious, what do you look for in a candidate running for city council? What do you look for, Maria? What kind of qualities do you look for when you think, I'm going to vote for that person? You know?
Sure. First of all, I want to meet them at the door if I have that chance, because I want to shake their hand. Is it a nice, strong handshake? Do they look me in the eye? COVID or no COVID, I'll grab the hand sanitizer. So I want to meet the person if I can.
Right.
But then I want to look at their credentials. So first of all, why are you running for office? Do you want to do something or do you want to be something? And there's so many of them, I want to be something. I've heard so many people say, I want to be in politics. I want to be in politics. This is public service. So what have you done in the community? So I think some community work is important. But because Ottawa City Council oversees a multiple billion-dollar budget and there are very complex issues coming to the table, I want to see a credentialed person. So tell me, what is your education? Don't get wishy-washy and say, well, I have some courses here and there. No. Do you have a degree? Did you go to college? What's your work experience like? And I think some people, I remember when I was in office, you'd hear people say, wow, this is the best job I'm ever going to have in terms of pay, and look at this, and I'm getting free breakfast, and I can have a cocktail at a party. It's not about that. And so I look at, is the person intellectually capable of understanding these complex issues? And that's a big thing happening at City Hall nowadays. Issues are becoming more complex. It's not as simple as how many graders do we buy to fix the roads.
Interesting. Okay, somebody credentialed. Walter, what do you look for in a candidate?
Maria stole my thunder on, do you want to do something or do you want to be someone?
Yeah, that's a great line.
As a city councillor, most people couldn't pick you out of a lineup if you had a city councillor sign flashing over your head, right? So it is about the details. I'll add just the one thing to Marie. Do you have a record in whatever you've done in your career as an entrepreneur, working in government, working in the not-for-profit sector, whatever you've done, do you have a record of teamwork? As Maria will tell you, the only way to get things done at council is to be a ward councillor, but your title is city councillor. You need to see the problems in your ward, the things that you ran on, and things that mean a lot to people in your community. It could be traffic calming. It could be working to get a new school with the Board of Education, understanding the numbers. It could be issues around public safety in your local parks. It could be as simple as a better bus route, or as my mom has worked with our councillors in Orleans, can I get a bench? Can I work with those who transfer get a bench at the bus stop? All those issues, but also the big issues of what is the official plan here? Where are we going on transportation? How are we mitigating climate change in realistic ways, not fancy-dancy 50 billion, 30-year plan? But what are we doing? Can you work with other people at the table? And to Maria's credit, I remember we had one or two tussles on one or two issues, but she'd say, by the way, I'm going to send so-and-so over and so-and-so over, and they're from an urban ward and they're from the rural ward. They have the same point of view on this front. We've had a discussion. We think this is big for the city. This is good for the city. That's the type of person I want as a city councillor who knows the ward, but understands their title is city councillor, finds that balance, and knows the only way they can get things done is by working with the other 24 people around that table after this time and the rest.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Sure.
Rob,
Go ahead,
I just want to
Maria.
tag on and say absolutely 100% to what Walter said about working with others. I mean, I'm not going to get into details now. Now's not the time. I kind of snicker and I look at these councillors that are getting nothing done in their wards, and they're saying, well, it's because of COVID. We couldn't get it done. Well, excuse me. What did you do the first 2 years before COVID or the last term? So if someone comes to your door, ask them, what have you built? You know, we want a new community center or an addition. Where is that? Is it in the planning stages, or are you so disagreeable with your other colleagues that you couldn't get those extra votes or get the mayor's office to help out? And it's not to talk about this club mayor's office or whatnot. It's exactly what Walter said. Can you be relied on as a member of council who sees the bigger picture, so that if you're dealing with a rural issue and you're an urban councillor, can you work together with those rural colleagues? Because you want them to help you with city projects. And he's absolutely right. If you can't play in the sandbox well with others, get nothing done.
Okay. We only have 30 seconds left, so who's going to win Osgood Ward, Thompson or DeRuse?
Me or Walter?
Maria? Thompson or DeRuse?
Oh, it's so tough to tell because Doug was such a beloved counselor out there, but George is there now. Is incumbency going to favor him?
Yeah.
I'm hearing it's a very nasty race out there from people that are paying attention. So I'm going to plead hard to tell. I really can't.
You'll have to wait till election night. Okay, fair enough. Walter? DeRuse or Thompson? Who do you like there?
I'd flip a coin. I don't know enough
Flip a
about
coin.
the ward
All right.
and the dynamics.
Okay. It's one to watch, though, just for the personalities that are involved. Okay. Look, thanks to the both of you. Safe travels to both of you. We'll speak next week, I hope. Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye-bye. Municipal Monday. With Walter Robinson calling in from the Dominican and Maria McRae calling in from parts unknown. The news is coming up. And then from the Ottawa Business Journal with all the interesting local business stories this week, David Sally will join us. This is City News.
The houseless crisis, because it really is a crisis down here on Rideau Street. There is not enough shelters for men especially, and we need to be helping our most vulnerable.
I think our schools need better resources. Teachers need to be paid better. I think that there should be programs for black people that prioritize our needs, and I think the curriculum needs to be adjusted to reflect all peoples, not just one kind of person. And they should also invest a lot of money in programs, after-school programs that are not like relevant in 1990, but that are relevant today.
Hi, Hi, I'm Meg from AIM Fitness, and I'm here with my buddy Fit Finley. Join us every week for Fit Over 50. We'll take you through some low-impact and high-intensity workouts designed to improve your strength and your balance. All you'll need is a resistance band, some light hand weights, and also your water bottle and a sturdy chair. Tune in right here on Rogers TV and let us be part of your weekly routine.
Join me for Season 3 of Paula Roy's Favorite Foods. Whew, that was a lot. I think I need a nap.
October 5th, 2014, my daughter was hit by a train. She was walking along the sides of the tracks, and it shattered her world.
School administration staff have voted 96.5% in favor of a strike. CUPE says more than 80% of its 55,000 education worker members voted, and the vast majority supported the bargaining team's demands and giving them a strike mandate. Laura Walton, the president of CUPE's Ontario School Board Council of Unions, says the bargaining team can now go back to the table with a clear indication of the level of support members have for the union's proposals. CUPE has bargaining dates scheduled with the government on Thursday, Friday, and October 17th and 18th. The second last advance poll in the civic election is Friday, with another the following Friday in advance of Election Day, October 24th. Candidate for Ottawa Mayor Mark Sutcliffe says he has a plan to revitalize the downtown and Byward Market. Sutcliffe says if elected mayor, he will have more housing built downtown by reducing or removing application and development charges. Ottawa police is asking for help in finding a missing person. 75-year-old David Harrison was last seen this morning headed west on Hamlet Road towards Purley Hospital. Harrison is described as 5'10", white with short white hair and blue eyes. Anyone with information on his location is asked to contact police. City News Time, 11:32. I'm Alex Gouge for News Anytime. Follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
He's a pillar of community opinion.
The Rob Snow Show returns
on Rogers TV and City News.
101.1 FM
and 1310 AM.
David Sally is with the Ottawa Business Journal, and he is with us every Monday. Welcome back, David Sally.
Well, thanks, Rob.
Yeah, it's great to hear from you. So, let's talk about, we're in a municipal election year, so, everything is up for debate, up for grabs. It's time for squeaky wheels to get some grease. So what's up with downtown parking fees and businesses? What's going on?
Well, Rob, this is as you can well imagine. I mean, just say the word parking, and it's
oh yes.
Everybody's got an opinion. Everybody's got thoughts on what should be done and how much they should be paying.
Right.
For parking. Most people, of course, would say they don't want to pay anything, but that's not realistic. But nonetheless, it has become quite the hot button topic in the last few days. After kind of coming out of the eco debate on last Wednesday night, where the candidates were kind of asked about their thoughts on issues like potentially charging should the city charge congestion rates for cars to come downtown,
right,
that sort of thing. And Brandon Bay, one of the candidates, he suggested, well, we already have a sort of tax on cars coming downtown, which is parking rates, and he suggested that those be gradually raised over time from an average of about, let's say, a little over $3 an hour right now to up to $9 an hour, and that would the extra revenue would then go to helping improve the transit system and fixing roads as well. So naturally, that got quite a debate going.
$9 an hour to park downtown.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Holy cow. Okay.
Yeah, he did later kind of clarify that, say that it wouldn't be like a huge one single big jump from $3 to $9. It would take place over time, and he wouldn't start to implement any increases until after stage 2 of the LRT system was up and running.
Okay.
But as you can expect, that did generate some backlash from some business business owners and advocates I spoke to last week. Among them, Mandy Gozowicz. She owns a clothing store in the market. I spoke to her about it. I spoke to Ian Boyd. He runs Compact Music in the Glebe. Many people know that store. He's been around forever, and they both I think use the same word to describe the prospect of a $9 parking. Ridiculous was I think the word they used. Right. But anyways, as did the Ottawa Coalition of Business Improvement Areas. Michelle Grew, the executive director, I talked to her, and she just felt that a move like that might backfire, that eventually people aren't going to come downtown and pay those rates. You're actually going to lose revenue, not to mention it would hurt people who work in those stores because they have to pay for parking. So you're going to be hurting, their view is, you'd be hurting a lot of people. And really, the transit system right now is just not at the point where we could expect people to just abandon their cars anyway and and everybody start jumping on the train or the bus. So, and other candidates have come out. Mark Sutcliffe has come out to, he said last week, he has no intention of raising rates, downtown parking rates. Catherine McKenney also came out and tweeted out that that's not part of her platform. She would look at various ways to try and get more revenues to put more funding for transit, but right now increasing downtown parking rates aren't among them. Other candidates have said the same thing, but nonetheless, it's become quite an issue that everybody is talking about these days.
Very interesting. Okay. Check that out at obj.ca. David Sally is with us tomorrow. There's an event at the Brook Street Hotel called the Ottawa Talent Summit. And one of the speakers is Stephen Harrington, partner at the global business advisory firm Deloitte. And Stephen Harrington is also Deloitte's national lead workforce strategy practice. And one of the themes of the speech will be the work from home phenomena. So that sounds like an interesting conversation. The OBJ had a chance to speak to Mr. Harrington. What will be some of the points he'll be touching on?
Yeah, so absolutely, Rob. This is always a topic that's on everyone's lips as well these days. And well, he's going to be addressing a number of issues at the Brook Street, and he just thinks there are a number of things looking at how we're going to return to work. Well, it's giving employers a chance to kind of rethink how they're engaging with employees and how they should be engaging with them differently in a post-pandemic world, where he says that basically that what's happened during the pandemic. He feels that there's just there's become a lot of we've fallen into a productivity trap, is how he describes it, where we're ticking off boxes. These days, we're sitting at our cubicle, sitting at home, doing a lot of tasks, but not really getting anything accomplished in big picture terms. And he thinks it's really time that's stressing people out. He thinks it's it's time that when we do come back to the office, maybe it's time to start thinking about how we redesign not just where our desks are, but how we distribute work, how we measure performance, how we run meetings, all of those types of things to kind of reorient the whole idea of work, that it shouldn't just be about getting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 objectives 1 through 8 or whatever done today. It's more about what are we going to do over the next few weeks, over the next month, over the next few months, taking a bigger picture look, a longer term look at how we measure performance. And he thinks that it's actually a really good opportunity right now as we're coming back to the office, rethinking, what should the future of work look like? Right. That it's time to also really take a close look at this, not just how we're arranging our desks but how we're arranging our work days. From a management standpoint and a task standpoint. So he thinks, obviously, like everybody, the hybrid model's here to stay, but it's going to require a new way of thinking and a new way of working.
Yeah.
So it should be a really interesting discussion.
I think so, especially around the workplace culture, actually in, say, the building or the office or whatever you want to call it. That you should create an environment where people have a fear of missing out. They want to go and be in on the in-person meetings and be part of a workplace culture and interesting in-person events, that it's not all about the flexibility of working remotely.
Exactly. If you're absolutely, and that's and that you make a good point there, Rob. You have to make coming to the office. You have to make it something that people feel like, I've got to be there.
I've got to be there
because
Cool. Okay. Canopy Growth in the news. What's the latest in the cannabis business?
Exactly, Rob. Well, as you know, things haven't been great lately for Canopy Growth, and I believe their last quarterly loss was over $2 billion. That's billion with a B.
Wow.
For various reasons, write-downs and all kinds of complicated things, but nonetheless, not a good picture. The price of cannabis is dropping. I mean, we're not seeing revenue gains anywhere in the industry. So Canopy's in tough right now, and they've decided they're going to get out of the retail business entirely.
Wow.
They operate stores under the Tweed and Tokyo Smoke banners, but as of last week, they announced that they've sold all those stores outside Alberta, as well as the IP for Tokyo Smoke, to a company called OEG Retail Cannabis, which is run by the Cates Group that owns the Edmonton Oilers. So they have now taken over 64 Tokyo Smoke stores, they already own 64. They're taking over another 23 stores, mostly in the West, as well as Newfoundland and Labrador. Tweed stores will be rebranded. And then another company, 420 Investments, they're acquiring 5 stores in Alberta that will be rebranded under their 420 banners. So clearly, Canopy has just decided it's got to focus on its core business, that is producing cannabis and figuring out how to sell more of it at higher prices, and forget about the actual retail side of the operation, and they're leaving that to other people who already have a more established infrastructure there. Just one more sign of changes in the cannabis market, Rob. Everybody trying to figure out how they can really make a go of it in a market that's been pretty tough so far.
Yeah, and this is one of the biggest players and one of the pioneers of the whole thing, right? I'm just looking at their shares. Canopy Growth Corporation went public. Let's look here. Went public, 5 years ago, almost to the day. At 5 years ago, October 13th, 2017, at $12.87 a share Canadian.
Yeah.
It rallied all the way up, hit an all-time high of $67.74 a month before legalization.
Correct.
Back in 2018. And then there was a big sell-off, and then it rallied again. But now it has been brutal. It has been brutal since 2021, and it's shot just under $4 a share now.
Yeah, it's under $4.
Right.
It's $3.93 right now. It's down 65% on the year.
Brutal.
Yeah.
Just brutal. Okay. Ottawa home prices expected to decrease 2% this fall, according to RE/MAX. Tell us a little bit more, David.
Yeah, well, it's not super surprising, I don't think, Rob. We've been seeing a trend for the last 6-7 months. Sales every month seem to be declining year over year, and eventually that is going to have an impact on the price. more inventory, it becomes more of a buyer's market. The bidding wars are over. So, yeah, and which is basically what RE/MAX Canada is sort of confirming in their new market outlook. They say that the average price, as you say, of a home in Ottawa is expected to drop about 2%. Over the rest of the year. So it stood at about 551,000 at the end of August, which was actually down from a year earlier slightly, 1.1%. And not surprisingly, transactions were also down year over year, almost 11%. So, and that's mirroring the national trend. RE/MAX figures that home prices across Canada will also fall about 2%, 2.2 over the rest of the year. And you know, some of that is just also due to interest rate hikes, damping the market. But they still feel like it's kind of a temporary trend, and that prices will probably start to rise again in the next while. But for right now, there is a bit of a lull, and of course, boom and busts. You know, it's likely not the last time we're going to see this sort of a downswing. So it's just basically a confirmation, Rob, of what we've kind of been seeing for the last several months in what was a pretty overheated housing market. There's now that correction that everybody was kind of waiting for. Well, it seems to be here.
Okay. Great stuff. Thank you so much, David Sally.
Thanks, Rob.
Yeah, we'll speak soon. David Sally is with the Ottawa Business Journal with us every Monday. Money Monday. With Peter Fraser, our certified financial planner, coming right up here on the Rob Snow Show on City News.
Think it's okay to drive high? Think again. Drug-impaired driving is as illegal as drunk driving, and in Ontario, the penalties are the same. If police suspect you're driving under the influence of drugs of any kind, or a combination of drugs and alcohol, and you fail a roadside test, your license will be suspended immediately for up to 30 days. You'll pay a penalty of $198. And you can be charged with a criminal offense of impaired driving, the same as alcohol. Driving high is never okay.
Do you have something to share? Let everyone know about your next meeting, your need for volunteers, or your fundraising event on the Rogers TV Community Billboard. Send us your words and we'll bring them to life on Rogers TV and rogerstv.com. When it's time to spread the word, go to rogerstv.com to add your announcement to the Community Billboard.
Enjoy the fresh outdoors. Play an important role in the lives of school-age children. Get paid to make a difference in your community. Become a crossing guard. We are currently recruiting crossing guards for the school year. We offer a competitive wage with various perks and opportunities for bonuses. Join the Ottawa Safety Council in keeping kids safe in the nation's capital. Find out more at crossing-guard.ca.
Play 4 games of bingo from the comfort of your own home each Monday at 7 p.m. for your chance to win money from our $2,000 regular bingo or $5,000 super bingo night. Kiwanis TV Bingo Mondays at 7 p.m. on Rogers TV.
we doing about COVID? Seems like the communications have been all about how everything's opening up, and yet here in Ottawa, we're experiencing our 7th wave, so a bit of a contradiction there.
He's the opinionated Ottawa icon.
The Rob Snow Show returns
on Rogers TV and City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Well, it's time for Money Monday with Peter Fraser. He's back with us. Peter Fraser, certified financial planner, investment advisor with Credential Q-Trade Securities here in Ottawa. Good morning, Peter.
Good morning, Rob.
Now, see, it's so important that I have you here on Money Mondays because, you know, I mentioned last week how I put my entire vast portfolio into the British pound. Then I got out of that. And I thought, what would be a good bet? And I put it all into shares in Credit Suisse. Yeah, that's some.
You really are a long-term investor, eh?
Contrarian. I'm a contrarian, I guess. No, I'm just teasing. 'Cause those are the big headlines, of course.
Right.
But nevertheless, you have been looking through something called the Nataxis Investment Managers Global Retirement Index. So what is it, and what have you learned?
I have been looking through that index, and it's a summary produced by this U.S. firm every year for the last 10 years. And basically, they rank the countries of the world in terms of how secure a place are those countries to retire in. And I thought we could take a look at that.
Sure thing. So what did you observe from going over this index?
Well, generally, and this won't come as a surprise, but this year in particular, in their words, warning signals are blaring and gauges are flashing bright red in 2022 because of these key risk concerns for retirement security. And that basically is a confluence of a few things that are coming to a head really in this year's. You've got a lot of things changing in the economic environment this year in an outsized way. So they ranked 44 countries and based their scores on how well they performed in areas like finances in your retirement, your sense of material well-being, your quality of life and health metrics. And the findings this year, interestingly, relating to our own country, seem to point to the fact that in 2022, Canada is a lot less secure a place to retire.
Wow. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, didn't crack the top 10 in any category and dropped to number 15 this year. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Interestingly, Norway, Switzerland, and Iceland are ranked number 1, 2, and 3. Probably good reasons for that. But you and I have talked many, many times that the concept of retirement security from a planning perspective is always relevant. It's almost always objective number one. Obviously, never more so these days when the trauma that we're all dealing with is surrounding us. But like you say, we were in the top 10 last year, dropped to 15 this year, and I thought we could spend some time talking about why that is in Canada in terms of what we may or may not be doing.
Yeah, and again, measuring us among our peer group, we underestimate a number of things.
We underestimate. We don't pay enough attention, number one, much more than our peer group, to the impact of longevity. Again, you and I have talked about this, but that's basically how long we think we'll live in retirement. And there's no getting around it. The people are simply older for longer. So that's the biggest mistake we're making in an outsized manner when we compare ourselves to others. Second component, of course, is inflation. We tend to underestimate the impact of inflation here in Canada on our planning. And the last one, which you and I have banged on about before too, is the cost of health care and whether it's present in any measure in terms of its impact on our plans and our retirement savings. So they make the point that these emissions come together and they make Canada a less secure place to retire.
Okay. So, I mean, not to pile on, but What's your advice? Well, what's the advice here for the week?
Reasonable, of course. Everybody's dealing with the toxic soup of brutal markets, runaway inflation, ongoing interest rate hikes. So it's already a risky year to retire. But it's still helpful to make a couple of comments and also to point out, in fact, they do, in their top 10 list of errors that everybody makes in assessing their retirement safety. I thought, in looking at them, it really isn't easy. It underscores just how hard it can be sometimes to get those plans right. But number one, and at the top of the list of common mistakes, is underestimating the impact of inflation. Half of everybody who looks at their retirement plan in the whole 44-country cohort does this. And the second biggest mistake is underestimating how long you'll live. You and I have said before that in our country, the 100-year-old is now the fastest-growing cohort. So nearly 50% of respondents were guilty of doing the same thing in their planning. The third one I thought was interesting, and that is, I see it and I understand it, but we overestimate our investment performance and the prospect of growing streams of income. So I don't know if that's sort of a positivity bias that, over time we'll always do well in the markets, but that is a mistake made by nearly 40% of people still. And the corollary to that, or reverse of that, of course, is being too conservative in retirement. There's a fair-sized cohort that overweights their portfolios in historically underperforming asset classes. So that's a big mistake. And then I thought we could jump to number 6 instead of number 5 because it underscores this issue of healthcare costs. It's still a big cohort of people who are not factoring that in properly. So
right. So the advice would be, see your financial advisor, or if you don't have one, contact Peter. They can contact you. How can they contact you the best way?
Well, we're at Money Mondays at Alterna.ca.
Right.
A copy of the 2022 Retirement Index is there, and help on how to build a plan and mess with it in order to contend with...
And stress test it. You can stress test it, right?
Yeah. Well, I thought these athletes do this. They prepare their plans, they practice their plans. And if you have a plan, you can practice with it. Drive your care costs up to some crazy number for a short period of time and see how that turns out. And certainly today, go and drive your expected inflation rates up to 6 or 7 or 8% and extend those for a period of time and mess with how that turns out, under duress, and everybody is these days. How well you cope with it can really depend on your level of preparation and how you train for it leading up to this point.
Great advice this week, Peter. Thank you.
Thanks, Rob.
Yeah. That's Peter Fraser. Again, Money Mondays at Alterna.ca. And Peter is certified financial planner, investment advisor, credential, Q-Trade Securities here in Ottawa. This is the Rob Snow Show. Sam LaPrade is next, right after our noon news on City News.
The Rob Snow Show.
Tune in weekdays starting at 9 on Rogers TV and City News, 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Number 1 for local news in Ottawa and the Valley.